beautiful.
Hello, lovers of the world. This is Cinta speaking. I love listening to new music. I always try every month to broaden my horizons, check out new things, because I just love the sense of triumph that you feel when you find something, whether that be an album or a new artist or a new song to completely love and obsess over. Now that it's the beginning of the new month, it is once again time to look back on the previous month and kind of reflect and summarize all my thoughts on the new music that I listened to in that month. As you can see, we're back on the same tier list, but obviously with new additions to rank. I want to keep all of the previous things that I ranked in the same list so I can compare every album that I've listened to from the year in the same place, how I feel about this new thing that I listened to something else that I had listened to in the previous month. Now, usually, I would explain my tier list rules and the grading system behind it, but to save us some time, I have decided to omit them for this video. Hopefully, the tier list names are self-explanatory enough that you can still follow along, but if you want to know for sure, you can definitely check out the previous video that I made for what I listened to in January. My reviewing style relies entirely on how I feel about an album. I don't really have a lot of musical theory background, so when I listen to something, it's all like vibes for me. If I know nothing else about music, I at least know how it makes me feel. I've also added timestamps in the description below to mark when I start talking about a specific album. So if you want to skip to those sections, so you can just move forward if you don't want to listen to a specific review of an album. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into what I listened to in February. I managed to listen to so much this month, considering that this is a very short month too. But I think it was just because I just felt more adventurous during this time. I definitely won't have a lot of time or bandwidth to listen to as much new stuff in March. I've kind of mentioned this in my community posts that I'll be definitely a lot busier from this point of the year onwards, but I will really try to continue making these music review videos. Anyway, so I'll talk about all of the stuff that I've listened to in more or less chronological order. I don't remember when I listened to them, but this is more or less the order of which I listened to everything. First thing I listened to was Things I Can't Say by OnlyOneOf. They are a K-pop boy group that I follow semi-consistently. They have a great title track called Dopamine, which I really enjoyed and is a strong candidate for one of my favorite K-pop title tracks of the year. Because of that, I had high hopes for this EP, and it definitely did not disappoint. It's a very solid EP with a very consistent sound, just sensual and sexy, that it's very signature to OnlyOneOf's previous music. The EP is unfortunately pretty short with only 4 tracks, but it packs a punch that I'm happy to forgive it for being quite short. So I'm gonna put this in French Toast. And then I listened to Sequence by SF9. This was released in 2024, and this is another EP by another K-pop boy group. I somewhat follow SF9, but not all the time. Sometimes I listen to a title track, and if it doesn't interest me enough, I probably won't listen to the EP, or sometimes I'll forget that they have a comeback. I'm like that with a lot of boy groups. The title track for this comeback is Bibora, which I thought was a pretty average song for SF9, considering that I feel like they've had better ones. It's not necessarily bad, it's just kind of predictable. I just feel like they've had better executions of the same concept, but I do appreciate their consistency. I think maybe this one was just like a dud for me. However, I can definitely see another SF9 fan who really loves the sound being really happy with this comeback. The rest of the EP is not bad. It's definitely longer than OnlyOneOf's, which I do appreciate. I like a few songs that I will probably keep in some playlists like Midnight Sun and Strings, which are just fun and summery and upbeat, which I really like. You know, a majority of the songs I feel like I could do without. So that being said, I will put this in Gems Found in the Mind. And then I listened to Laugh Track by The National. This was released in 2023 last year. Now, funnily enough, I actually did attend the Nationals concert here in Auckland. I made a vlog for it, so I will release that sometime later in March. But basically, I do consider myself a very casual listener of The National. I know a lot of their popular songs, but I definitely wouldn't recognize them if I saw them walk down the street. I was just excited to go to a concert, and I thought it would be fun to go to this one, even though I wouldn't necessarily say I'm very familiar with their discography. So what I did is I decided to listen to as much as I could. I listened to their most recent albums, which were Laugh Track and the first 2 pages of Frankenstein. Honestly, I wasn't really a big fan of the first 2 pages of Frankenstein, and I'm not really a big fan of this one either. I would put this in the most album ever, just because I don't really hate it, but I don't love it either. So either I listened to this when I wasn't in the mood for it, but honestly, I just don't remember anything from it. At least with the first 2 pages of Frankenstein, there was one song that I remember a lot, and it was The Alcott, which featured Taylor Swift. So, I'm basic, okay? And that's okay. And then I listened to 2 by I-dle. This was released in 2024. I gotta say, this is probably the album that I like the most from I-dle. I-dle is kind of like one of those K-pop girl groups that I have a somewhat, I don't want to say love-hate relationship, but I think that's the best way to describe how I feel about them. I would say I probably like 30% of their entire discography, and then the other 70%, I'm like, I was really looking forward to this album in particular because I really loved Wife. I think I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I have never felt so excited about a I-dle song before Wife. It's just a silly fun song. I love it so much. I was thinking like, I wonder how they're gonna top Wife, and then they did with Super Lady, and I think it is one of their best title tracks for sure. I love all these individual like details about the song that kind of accumulate into this one big thing in a way that I can just dissect all of these elements that I love, but also there's some stuff in there that I don't necessarily love myself. I love how the song starts off with Sehyun belting out this very memorable hook in such a powerful and impactful way. I am a tough super lady, I never lose yet, cause I got a super power. And the rest of the song is a roller coaster from there on. Although I do not really vibe that much with the ending. I feel like it's a bit of a letdown because it obliterates the momentum of the song by switching up the pace. But to be fair, I really don't like big room, the genre anyway, so I'm completely biased on that part. However, the more I listen to the song, the more I warm up to it, and the more I can see that, this was a intentional and stylistic choice, which I can at least objectively appreciate. And the more I listen to it a lot because overall, the rest of the song I just really enjoy. The chorus is catchy, the verses are cool, there's very, very, very many memorable hooks, all from different members that I think stand out. And it's pretty much the last 30 seconds that I was a bit like, oh, you lost me. But it's okay. It's okay. And then the rest of the album is very typical I-dle. But my standouts are actually Vision and 7 Days. They are tracks that are romantic and vulnerable and wistful, and I kind of really enjoy those sides of I-dle because a lot of the times they definitely perform a very powerful girl crush concept, and that's what their fans want from them anyway. But I think there's something so enticing about these softer sides that make me keep coming back because that's what I want from them. And then that's why I keep listening to their music, because there's a chance they might throw me a bone, which they have done so very graciously in this album. I wish they didn't call the album 2 though. I don't really understand why they did that. That being said, I'm gonna put this album in Gems in the Mind. And then I listened to this EP called How to Grow a Dream That We've Forgotten by Jang Sehyun. This was released in 2024, and I basically found this project in a Rate Your Music list. If you don't know what Rate Your Music is, it's basically a website for music snobs. I am kind of doing this thing this year where I try to look for new music in these areas. So I've been finding new music on Instagram Reels and Rate Your Music, and I found this guy on South Korean shoegaze, and this is their debut EP, which definitely sounds like a debut EP, but overall I think this person has potential, so I am happy that I found them, and I really look forward to more of their releases. I am putting this in Gems Found in the Mind. And then I listened to Floriculture by Echo. This was released in 2020. This is an EP. So I came across this video called I Made the Arthur Theme Song Midwest Emo on my YouTube recommended dashboard. I've never watched the Arthur TV show ever in my entire life. I didn't grow up with it. I was more intrigued by the Midwest emo part, and because I actually do like Midwest emo. Out of curiosity, I clicked on it and I really liked the song. This Midwest emo version of the Arthur theme song is called Believe in Yourself by this band named Echo. I do think it's just a guy though. It's like his stage name. So I decided to look him up on Spotify and listen to their other songs. So most of their discography is just currently singles, and this is basically the longest project they have, a 4-track EP titled Floriculture. I think that the EP itself is not bad. Again, it's quite short, and I feel like it still shows a lot of his skills and talents and personality. My favorite song is Ron Wilson Bus Driver. Not only is it a good opener, but I think it's the song that will probably remain in my heavy rotation the longest alongside Believe in Yourself, because I don't know why, but the way that he transformed that song into a Midwest emo song is just so compelling. But I also want to shout out the band's cover of Coffees for Closers because I love Fall Out Boy and I respect a fellow Fall Out Boy fan. Today's t-shirt is brought to you by the 2018 Fall Out Boy tour that I went to. So I would put Floriculture by Echo in Gems Found in a Mine because of how much I like Ron Wilson Bus Driver. And then I listened to M by Mỹ Anh. This was released in 2024. And Mỹ Anh, I believe, is a Vietnamese pop R&B singer. This was just recommended to me by the Spotify algorithm. Despite being an album, this kind of feels quite short. I think it's because the tracks, most of them are below 3 minutes, and it is what it is. The album itself is not bad despite being short. It's just perfectly pleasant pop that is very much influenced by what's popular right now. It's very radio and TikTok friendly, for better or worse. You can take that as a critique and also a compliment. And I have no problem recommending this to somebody else, but the fact that I don't really remember any tracks from the album makes me want to just put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to The Bends by Radiohead. Yes, ladies and gentlemen and esteemed guests, this is basically the first time I'm listening to this album. I know, I'm sure a lot of you are surprised, but would also kill to be in my position listening to this very influential and very famous album for the first time. I was perusing Rate Your Music's albums of all time list and was intrigued, to say the least, by the sheer number of Radiohead albums on that list is kind of staggering and should be studied, methinks. But I know that Radiohead is a popular band. They're kind of just the names here floating around. But I just never understood this cult-like following about them. So when I saw that they had so many bloody albums on the list, I was like, what the heck? So I decided to kind of do a deep dive on their discography. So far, I've only just listened to this one album, but I'm going to try and, space it out and not listen to so much Radiohead that it does my head in. I decided on listening to The Bends, partly because it already contained 2 songs that I know and I really like from them, High and Dry and Fake Plastic Trees. I already knew them, and for a reason, they still stand out. Even after listening to the album, I consider Easy to Like because it's moody and sad enough to resonate with the average Joe, the average listener, but not as particularly devastating as their other songs that it alienates other people. So anyway, I approached this album mostly with curiosity to see what is the damn fuss about. And what stood out to me when I was listening to it in the beginning was how influential this album is to a lot of people that I listen to currently. This is my favorite artist's favorite band, And it made me realize how heavily inspired people are by Radiohead in general, that I feel like this was easy to like because I've been listening to so many people who are musically bringing in that love and passion for Radiohead into their own music. So it really feels like I've been prepped to like this album by all the other bands that I've been listening to, and it's culminated into this moment of listening to this album and being like, oh, I get it now.
Oh my God. I get it.
I got to the end of the album and I was just shocked by how much I actually ended up enjoying it. I thought I would be I guess this was an album. I feel like this is a bit overrated though, but I was like, okay, fine. I see what the hype is all about. So I'm putting this in French toast. I have to, what can you do? But it does make me wonder whether I'll have the same luck with their other albums or if this album was just an outlier that I serendipitously chose. But there is indeed only one way to find out, and it's to listen to more of their music. My favorite songs are still High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees, but I really truly love Bulletproof, I Wish I Was. Oh, gut-wrenching. And then I listened to Think Later by Tate McRae. This was released in 2023. So I seriously wasn't sure who Tate McRae was until I started seeing her singles go viral on Instagram Reels. I'm not on TikTok, I'm on Instagram Reels, okay? I am pretty sure that I've listened to one of her EPs before, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. I didn't enjoy Greedy either. I didn't really like it as a song. I just felt like it reminded me of all these other songs, and instead of listening to Greedy, I would rather listen to the other songs that it reminds me of. Because of that, I was like, okay, then I just won't listen to her music. I just won't, I won't, there's no point. Until I saw that Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd, reviewed her album and gave it a not good. And I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh. I mean, he gives out these not goods to people, but for some reason I was like, "Oh, that's a bit harsh. Surely there's something that you can enjoy from this album." So I decided to still like listen to it and see what I would think and whether or not he and I would agree. And okay, where do I start? First, the album is already at a disadvantage for me because I'm already not a big fan of the genres that she's leaning towards. Generic trap and pop fusion music that I feel like is kind of oversaturating the market a little bit. And there's a reason why I wasn't following her prior to this endeavor anyway, right? I also think that her voice tone can be a bit grating if you're not into that kind of sound. I feel like I've heard better executions of this like nasally baby talk voice before. So I wasn't really that impressed with her execution of it, especially when I can also barely understand what she was trying to say, and that might have been a stylistic choice, but it's just not a choice that I was interested in, I could definitely feel that there was a lot of intention and feeling and passion towards the album, but I was just not really getting it. The songwriting is also just like nothing to write home about. None of them really resonated with me, and to be fair, I have never been through a breakup before. I've never felt like all these feelings that he's talking about, so it might just be a me thing. But I feel like there are ways of crafting and painting those moments of heartbreak into a song in a way that a listener can still, relate to it. Plenty of Tate McRae's contemporaries find creative ways of telling that same story of heartbreak, but in variety of different ways. And I can also tell that she's being vulnerable in many songs, but I feel like those emotions are expressed so shallowly that it just feels like I'm being beaten over the head with songs that are the same story over and over without any nuance or different perspective or just like without any new angles. So for that, I will put this in, well, I learned something new, because I did. I learned that Tate McRae is not for me. There were some songs that I thought were like, oh, interesting, but not enough to, bump it up. And I also wouldn't put this in my playlists either. But I kind of just wanted to talk about them. So there's a song called We're Not Alike. I think that one stood out to me because it's the most sonically different from the rest of the tracks that I was kind of confused as to how it ended up in this album. And I know why I like this. It reminds me of another song that I love called Talk by Baby Doobie. Again, it's like that thing, why would I listen to a song that reminds me of a song that I can listen to instead? And then Calgary is another interesting song. And Run for the Hills has this interesting part in the song that I found quite catchy. Moving on, I listened to Stunning by 8-Turn. This was released in 2024. And 8-Turn is in my eyes, new Nugu boy group. I don't even know what company they're under. I think it's M&H Entertainment, which used to have Chungha, but as far as I'm aware, she's left that company already. I really didn't like this EP. I didn't like their title track. I enjoyed nothing about listening to this. But worse than that, there's just nothing for me to talk about. Like, I think that's even worse than just disliking it. At least with the Tate McRae album, I had so much to say about it. That's why it's like, in a higher tier. But this one is just like, it's nothing. I completely forgot what this like album sounded like because I wrote this down. That's the only way I remember that I even listened to this. And then I listened to Killin' It by P1 Harmony. This was released in 2024 and it's another EP by another K-pop boy group. Exactly. Now, objectively, I do think this is a good album. Objectively, as in this would satisfy many K-pop fans, not just P1 Harmony fans, but other casual listeners, multi-fandom fans. Subjectively, personally, I didn't really like it that much. And none of the songs were particularly memorable except for Late Night Calls. I really like that song, just not enough to put the entire album on a higher tier. But I definitely have listened to Late Night Calls a lot this past month. And for that, I'm just gonna put this in, well, I learned something new, because I did. And then I listened to DNR by Michelle. This was released in 2024. Exactly. Yes. Yes, exactly. I didn't realize how much I love Michelle until I look at how many times I've scrabbled their music in Last FM, and I'm like, oh, it's a lot of scrabbles. So I really love this band. Last year they released a pre-release single for this EP called Glow, and actually that was one of my favorite songs of 2023. And it was basically to prepare for the release of this EP. I pretty much love all the songs in this EP. It's just top tier, so that's why it is going in year-end list material. And then I listened to Sparkling Blue by TWS. This was released in 2024. This is a new boy group from Pledis Entertainment. I think it's pronounced Tuose, which is apparently short for 24/7 with us. The eldest member is born in 2003 and the youngest was born in 2007. So it's no surprise that their debut song is just very Disney Channel vibes. I am 25 years old, and I'm certainly not the target demographic for this band. At least I hope not. So while it's fun and upbeat, I think the EP is just not very memorable. It's just kind of like, it's fluff. Like, it's fun fluff. It's a fun, good time, but it's still fluff. It's like marshmallow fluff. It's sweet, but it's not going to fill you up. Kids will like it, but adults will just have a tummy ache. I don't know. Anyway, I lost that analogy. It's 1 a.m. Damn it. Regardless, I'm gonna put this in Gems Found in the Mind because, consistent sound. I think the vocals are fine. And it's cute. I'm just a sucker for upbeat, cute things. And that's okay. And then I listened to Everything I Know About Love by Laufey. So this was released in 2022, and this is Laufey's debut album. This is fine. I don't really like bossa nova, and it's okay. I'm gonna put this in the most album ever. And then I listened to Who Is Me? Complex by Hui. This was released in 2024. This is an EP by the main vocalist of Pentagon. Pentagon is basically kaput at this point. So they're a K-pop boy group, right? And all of the members have decided not to renew their contracts with Cube Entertainment. So I think it's safe to say that Pentagon is disintegrating right before our very eyes because Hui had a few more months in his contract with Cube that he decided to just release an EP before also gapping it. This is that. And honestly, it's not bad. I'm putting this in Gems Found in a Mind. It's a very short EP with only 4 tracks. Take a shot every time I say, this is a short EP with only 4 tracks. I wasn't really a big fan of the title track, I'll be honest, but that's okay. And truthfully, I don't think there's a song in the entire world that Hui will not sound incredible in. He was their main vocalist for a reason. Out of the 4 tracks, I did end up liking 2 of them. Mellow featuring Park Hyun-jin and A Song from a Dream featuring Woo-seok, fellow Pentagon member. And then I listened to As I Am by Alicia Keys. This was released in 2007. Straight to French Toast. This is a great album, no notes. The only thing though is that I kind of expected a more R&B album because the 2 biggest popular songs from this album were more R&B leaning. I thought that the entire album would be R&B leaning, but this is more like soul, neo soul. She really shines in this album, whether that's R&B or soul. It's just because she has a great, amazing, memorable, impactful voice. Now, my favorite song on this album is actually Teenage Love Affair. I already knew this song before listening to this album. I have a personal relationship with the song. I just vividly remember being 9 years old and watching Nickelodeon. This music video would frequently play during the commercial breaks. I just remember seeing the music video so clearly and vividly. What a time. And then I listened to 24K Magic by Bruno Mars. This was released in 2015. I'm putting this straight to French Toast as well. This is a really, really good album. It is pretty generous to say that this is the first time I'm listening to it because out of the 9 tracks on this album, I'm intimately familiar with 5 of them, which are 24 Karat Magic, Chunky, That's What I Like, Versace on the Floor, and Finesse, because those are the singles of the album and they are really, really, really popular singles for a reason. And they are pretty much my favorite songs of the album, and the other 4 were like fine. It's just very clear why the 5 tracks that were singles were singles. They just hit so much. And then I listened to Boxer by The National. This was released in 2007, And I'm putting this in Gems Found in the Mind. I think this was the most positive I felt about a full national album because at this point, I've only listened to these three in total. Before listening to this album, I already knew two songs, which were Start a War and Fake Empire, and they still remain to be my favorites, not just from the album, but from the band. But Apartment Story is climbing very, very steadily and very, very quickly up the ranks of my favorite national songs. And then I listened to X by Kylie Minogue. This was released in 2007. It was my friend who suggested that we do a artist discography dive on Kylie Minogue together. And basically we're listening to one album together per week or something. And this is the one we started off with. Honestly, I wasn't really a big fan of the first half of the album. I actually thought this was going to be a dud for me until we reached Heartbeat Rock, which is pretty much the midway point of the album. And that's when things kind of started like switching up. For me, at least. Heartbeat Rock as a song really reminds me of something FX would have released back in their heyday. It's just that exact flavor of experimental, fun pop music that I could see them doing. By the way, for those who don't know who FX is, they are a very popular and very important K-pop girl group. After Heartbeat Rock, I realized that I definitely like the second half of the album a lot more. That being said, I am more than willing to put this in French Toast, even though I only like the second half. But I can objectively look at the entire thing as like a very cohesive and very intentional body of work. My favorite songs are The One, Wow, and All I See Is You. Just delicious, yummy, scrumptious pop music. And then I listened to All Hours by All Hours. This is a EP released in 2024 by a new boy group. I honestly wasn't even sure who they were. I don't know what company they're from. I think I came across their music video and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I honestly went into this EP with very low expectations because I really disliked their title track, Gotcha. It's the kind of sound and overtly masculine musical style that irritates me and reminds me exactly why I follow girl groups a lot more. But to my absolute surprise, there are songs here that genuinely impressed me, which are Drift, Racer, and All Hours. So 3 out of the 5 songs is pretty good track record. I do wish that they just turned Drift into a proper song because as it is, it's just like a really short introduction to the EP. But I'm like, just make it a new song. It would make the entire thing more like satisfying. Regardless, I'm pretty happy to put this in Gems Found in the Mind. Who knows, I might check out their next comeback. And then finally, I listened to Connect by B1A4. This was released in 2024. And I think this is a really good album. It's very cohesive. The title track is really perfect. It's called Rewind. I really like it. It's fun, it's sweet, it's the kind of soft masculinity that I really gravitate towards. And just like the title of the song, it like rewinds to these classic sounds from the 90s and the 80s with synth pop, which I just think is very fun and cool, and I love it. The rest of the EP follow a similar suit with the title track, just in varying degrees of mood and atmosphere, but overall, it's very much like a love letter to a specific sound and a specific past. Nothing about the EP reinvents the wheel in particular, but it's just a really excellent execution of what it strives to be. So, I'm putting this in French Toast. All right, and then finally, to wrap things up so that I can go to sleep, here are the stats for February. Thank you so much for sticking to the very end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. I'd love to hear from you what your most recent favorite musical projects were or your most recent favorite song in the comments. If you want to see more of my work, you are welcome to subscribe, especially if you don't want to miss out on the next monthly music review, which will be summarizing what I listened to in March. My social media links are down in the description alongside my Patreon and Ko-fi pages if you want to support my work. I'm trying to be more active on Instagram. As for Twitter, I'm still on there. It's just like old habits die hard. I do have a Blue Sky account that I've linked below, but I honestly don't use it. I don't know. I'm sure it's good. I just haven't made that leap to a new platform yet. Otherwise, I can't wait to share my love with you again next time. I'll see you soon. Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, she's never ending now. You got it, you wow, 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 wow.